So here I am playing Axis Empires Daisenso and Total Krieg right at the beginning of the game. Set up the option cards. Everybody's looked through, and this nice little situation where you sit back and really can consider all the different options you have. Reminds me of when I first started looking at Europa Universalis, wow, look at all this stuff I have to consider and plan and everything, and I can really take my time. Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of time anymore in my life, and I don't have the kind of space where I could just kind of lounge back and sit and make that decision. So it was a little less pleasant than I would hope to be, but still captures that same spirit that I really love. Now, looking at the sequence of play, I should probably grab an Axis card or something, but anyway, looking at the sequence of play, we're in the Axis faction turn, seasonal phase. It's the option card segment, and we're actually going to look at what the Axis chose for their option cards. There's a couple things that are a little iffy here in terms of the rules, but let me pull the first one. So over here in Europe, they picked support nationalists. They're going to support the nationalists over in Spain because that's where the Civil War is. Presumably there'll be the expansion that allows the Civil War to be elsewhere as well, and eventually. And we're going to have a number of things that take place here. At the same time as I pull this, I also am pulling the Japanese pick. Now, from what I can figure, these maps are almost entirely separate, which is to say that if I do an economic growth card for, say, the Germans' axis, it's not going to affect the fact that the Japanese axis do the same. And the same goes true with the Western Allies and Soviets, although they're the same countries. That's the best I can figure. Anyway, here they did an economic program. This is kind of an interesting choice. It's going to remove a card when it takes effect, and essentially they're deciding they want to focus on the greater prosperity sphere rather than on the military of either side. Basically, their choice on the military because of an initial die roll was the Navy, and the Navy wasn't particularly what they wanted to focus on if they were going to go military. If they were going to go military, they kind of wanted to do the Army focus, the historical Chinese expansion. They got a bad roll there as far as I'm concerned. They could have gone for the Restoration. That would allow them to change between an Army and Navy government more easily. I didn't particularly want to do that either. It seemed to me, economics, man, that's the way to go. All right. So where are we? Well, now here's the problem. I got to do this all over again. I got to think about those two, about the cards that the Axis is going to play for their next choice and put it face down under it. And then I'll come back. Okay, continuing along. The next step here was logistics and partisan. There wasn't anything I could do there, so I go to the replacement segment, and here I look at the specific cards for replacement points. So for example, Japan gets 2 infantry steps of replacements. Now, this only happens in a seasonal turn. In my case, and this may have been foolish, but I don't know what to do with Japan, I took those and placed the Kwangtung unit first 1 step and then the other to upgrade it, and that's allowable as far as I understand. And I can put it here because of the logistics marker. I couldn't, say, upgrade some of these forces in China. I'm kind of delaying the China war, I'm afraid. That's basically what it comes down to. I'm not actually at war yet, so, or am I with Kiangsu? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff on the board, so it makes me wonder, am I at war with them? I'm not at war, I don't believe I am, because I'm still in pre-war era, and just like I'm not at war with France, even though they have pieces on the board. Okay, and for Germany, well, likewise, I got a single infantry step replacement, and that I just took and put a unit over here in Frankfurt. All right. So now I go to the political events segment, and actually, I don't remember which one. I think I'm supposed to do all of Total Krieg first for each of these steps, and then all of Dai Sensei. It doesn't really matter. So in this case, I'll be looking at the political events segment, and here there's a civil war country, so I roll a die. And this is all that happens, right? We see what comes of my support. And I get a stalemate, no result. That's a pity. I would have liked a victory that would let me flip over one of those counters. And if I get them all, I get a nationalist victory. As it was, though, nothing happened. And now I got to go over and I'll grab the dice because I'm sure I'll need them to see what happens here in political events. I forgot to do all these option card things. I've got to do these as well. So, for example, I got to hunt down this card and remove it, as well as one of these from the much later deck that I don't even have deployed yet. But I also have to take the government marker and move it over to the delay box. Now, I don't know what happens when this comes back, all right? But right now, I don't have a government marker. Which means a lot of cards can't be played. I may get it at random after that. And I'm also going to get a scratch convoy, which I have to hunt out of here and put it into the delay box. That'll come into play. It doesn't look like I have a political event on this side. So I'm going to cut away and do some of that mechanical stuff that I missed. So I finished up the option card stuff that I should have done before for the Japanese. And they put their government marker in the delay box. I still don't know what that does. And I put a scratch. I don't know whether it comes back random is basically the issue. And I suspect it does. And I put a troop convoy in there. Now, what's kind of interesting here, this is something I found out that's really cool. You got the number of the card that was played to create it on every counter. So every reinforcement has a number on it or some other index to help you find it. I found that a little helpful. I'm not sure if I'd want to sort everything by number in that case or by type. I've sorted by type because of the smaller scenarios, but it might actually behoove me to keep the sorting by the number of the card somehow. Okay, there's a lot of cards though. They also removed, wow, that's a nice echo, a couple of cards. In particular, they removed the political program card, which means they'll not have that control over the government with the restoration. And they removed an Imperial Directive of Naval Projects, which actually was played historically. They're focusing, the thing that really caught their eye was chemical warfare. They're focusing on the idea of winning the China War, because I know how hard it is for me to do the naval invasion, so I want to avoid them since I'm Japan. All right, how about over to Germany? Well, Germany's is a little more complicated. You see, their card says if there's a civil war country, remove one influence or neutrality marker on the map or roll on any one area table. If the result is a neutral country, apply influence to it. Well, historically, what I would guess probably happened is this neutrality in Italy was removed. But I'm not sure what that means, right? Influence sounds like a good thing. I'd like to have that. Now, I could play on the Western, but it looks like that's got too many dangerous choices here. So I'm going to go with the Northern table and see what happens. Largely here you're going to see a lot of blundering around through this game because I don't know what the effects of different choices are going to be in the long term. So here I am on the Northern table. I'm thinking, something like Sweden could be really useful. And I get the Baltic states. I get an influence in the Baltic states. I'll put that marker down. I have to dig it up. It's kind of hard for me because markers are all piled up in with the playing counters. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, it looks like I cheated back in the replacement phase. This Kwangtung unit, I can't build it up right away. So I've got one additional Japanese replacement to put into place. I'm going to end up putting something somewhere else, but I can't right away turn that into a real unit. I got kind of lax because with the Germans I could get away with that before, but here, not so easy. And I've got an issue because I don't have additional counters to play there. So I'll be playing some kind of Japanese infantry over in Japan itself, or else a colonial unit somewhere, but I don't think that's likely. All right. Outside of that, without a war, not much is happening here. I could place some counters conceivably, and I may. For example, I've got this troop convoy. Why don't I start moving some of these Japanese, especially this new unit I just created, into position? And I'll drop a troop convoy here, and then during movement I'll be able to shift that down to maybe a location down here that I wouldn't be able to get to otherwise. Hey, might as well. There's no real cost to it. It doesn't even have a delay stripe. Okay, so what else do we see here? I guess operational movement and combat. I don't have anything to do over on the European map. Germany's too weak. So operational movement, I'll ship this and I'll put it over in Formosa. That seems like a useful place. And this becomes used now. It can only carry one step at a time. I couldn't build up and send stuff there. So there you have that. Again, nothing's happening over here. Reserve movement. I can move my stuff around, and I probably want to. For the simple reason, hey, remember that Kwangtung unit? I can stack it. Whoa, I've got multiple ones here. I can stack it together and create a single unit with that. And actually, I could have done that with some of these, couldn't I? Yeah. A little earlier, I could have done these moves during the reforming and grab a couple of steps back that I can rebuild more easily later. You might say, well, why would you want to do that? It increases the defenses, and overall, yeah, it just seems effective to me. I don't have a lot of steps to build, so I don't want to get in the position where I can't build things because I haven't upgraded all my units. So I'll go to that setup. War and Peace, I don't feel capable of going to war yet anywhere. The Japanese are in better shape than anyone else, well, than the Germans are, but in neither case am I in a position to really start something here. Conditional events, well, I think we have some. If total war is not in effect, apply economic program. Ooh, I gotta look that up. Let's see what's going on here. And here we don't have one. This card doesn't have a little thing, so it's going to be discarded at the next option phase. It stays up for the rest of this season. But I'm going to have to look up this 16.22, and that's going to be over in the Dai-Sensei rule, or Dai-Senso rules, because that's going to be specific. This can only happen once per game. Take the economic program logistics marker from the Axis conditional events box and place it in the delay box. Okay, that's this. And these I've removed from play. They're not going to even ever show up. That's kind of unfortunate. But hey, I didn't realize that was going to be the case. Okay, so this is going to go into the delay box, and that'll give me an additional logistics marker to operate in China, I think. Alright, I think that's most of one faction turn. And I'll load this up, and then I'll get back and maybe go into the same... I don't know if I want to go into the same depth of detail, because we're just making political choices here. That's most of what this game is about at this point. Once we get to limited war, there's somewhat smaller fighting, where you have the Chinese front or France opening up much later. And then when you hit total war with the Russian front or the full attacks in the Pacific, well, you've got a completely different war shifting there again. Not that the rules change all that much, it's just the options available to you do. Alright, let's load this up and see how we keep going.